Hey guys, Tyler here, and thanks for checking out this video. And 9.2 is finally here, which means we have a new Marksman Hunter guide for you guys today. But I don't just have one, I have four. So I decided for the last tier of Shadowlands to make a guide for each and every covenant. So this particular video is going to be covering your Venthyr Marksman Hunter. If you want to check out any of the other guides, they will be found in a playlist that's going to be found at the end of this video or down below in the description if you'd like to check it out right now, and I would encourage you to do so. But as for this video in your Venthyr Marksman Hunter, we're going to be talking about rotation, stat priority, how the 2 and 4 set for new tier pieces in this final raid is going to affect your playstyle, as well as your legendary choices, and so much more. So, let's get started.
Mr. Eggplant presents.
And before we dive into the video, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for supporting me here in Shadowlands. YouTube is such a rewarding hobby, and it's so nice to connect with people all over the world. And if this did help you out, this video, you learned something new, definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already. That way we can continue to grow the channel, and that way we can help more people enjoy Marksman Hunter, their favorite class, favorite spec of the game. And then also, I cannot update this video after it does go live, obviously. So if there's any changes, be sure and check the pinned comment down below, check the description, and then also just check out the timestamps. It might be a little long for you. Find the place that you are looking for, and let's go ahead and get to the video. So first off, why Venthyr? As a Venthyr Marksman Hunter, you get two main abilities, one being Flayed Shot and the other being Door of Shadows. And the way Flayed Shot works is it's a 30-second cooldown, which gives it the distinction of being the shortest among all of your Marksman Hunter Covenant abilities, and it's just an 18-second dot that causes your target to bleed for a percentage of your attack power as shadow damage. So think of it kind of like the old Survival Hunter Black Arrow ability. But each time that the dot deals damage, you have a percentage chance to proc Flayer's Mark. And the way Flayer's Mark works is it causes your next kill shot to be free, usable on any target regardless of their current health, which includes other targets, not just the one that has your dot on it, and it does increase the damage of that kill shot by 25%. The whole Venthyr Marksman Hunter kit really revolves around doing as much damage as possible with your kill shots, which makes Venthyr great for single target, especially with changes here in 9.1 and 9.2, and then also great for PvP since it is really single target oriented damage. And your second Covenant ability is going to be Door of Shadows, which has a 1-minute cooldown. And think of Door of Shadows pretty much as like a Warlock port, where you can go up to 35 yards away in any direction, but it does have a 1.5 second cast time. And in the Mistblade Soulbind, you also get the ability called Agent of Chaos. Whenever you use your Door of Shadows, it disorients all nearby enemies at a target location that you ported to for 6 seconds after you appear. So much like the other covenants here in Shadowlands, the Venthyr gets special abilities when completing dungeons found in their zone, which is Revendreth. And those two dungeons are Sanguine Depths and Halls of Atonement. So in Sanguine Depths, a Venthyr can interact with anima canisters found throughout the dungeon, and that increases damage that enemies take while they are near the canister. And then in the Halls of Atonement, you can interact with a gargoyle that are also throughout the dungeon, and they have a breath ability which does a large amount of damage in the area, and then they will fly off after a small amount of time. So for a single target Soulbind on your Venthyr Marksman Hunter, you want to Soulbind with Nadjia the Mistblade, and her first ability is going to be called Thrill Seeker. So while you are in combat, you just gain stacks of Thrill Seeker every couple of seconds, and then once you reach 40 stacks, you do drop those stacks, and then you get a buff called Euphoria, which can be tracked with a weak aura. And what Euphoria does is it gives you a 20% haste buff for 10 seconds. This is great for Marksman Hunters because we're already running with really low haste thanks to the way we build with Versatility and then Mastery being more important than haste, but it's also kind of like a Bloodlust / hero that you can be using throughout the fight. And then that comes down to our first Potency Conduit, which will be Empowered Release. And I kind of talked about this one earlier. This is our best one. It's our Covenant Conduit, and it increases the chance that Flayed Shot will proc Flayer's Mark, giving us that free kill shot, and just increases the damage of that said kill shot. And then after that, we will go with Agent of Chaos, which is the one that causes your Door of Shadows to disorient all nearby enemies at a target location for 6 seconds after you appear. then this will be the only tree that will use more than 2 finesse conduits. We actually use 3 in this particular build. So unfortunately there's only 4 as a marksman hunter, but Reversal of Fortune is by far the best. So if you have the opportunity to do any sort of interrupting in a fight, be sure to do so, because if you do successfully, you gain a little bit of focus. And then we get to pick Friends in Low Places, which is pretty much kind of a throwaway Soulbind ability if I'm being honest. After that, we get to pick our only endurance conduit. So there are 5 different ones and they're all really good. I would prefer, if I was only picking one, to do Condensed Animosphere, because there's really no bad time to use it. But otherwise, you can either pick Animosphere, Marksman's Advantage, Harmony of the Tortolan, Rejuvenating Winds, or Resilience of the Hunter. Then we get an option of 3 different abilities, but since Dauntless Duelist is so good, we're going to go once again with another Finesse Conduit. This time I would pick Cheetah's Vigor. So it just lowers the cooldown of your aspect of the cheetah and then makes the secondary movement speed last a little bit longer. And Dauntless Duelist is after that, and this is really what makes her good, particularly in PvP, is whenever you attack an enemy for the first time, you do 3% more damage to them, and they do 1.5% less damage to you. So kind of like a little bit extra versatility in your build. This is great for PvP and great for a single target fight where you don't switch targets. Then we get to pick another potency conduit, so this is your choice. You can either pick Sharpshooter's Focus, which increases the duration of True Shot, or you can pick Powerful Precision, which increases the damage of either Arcane Shot or Multi-Shot after you're attacking with an aimed. And then the last fork in the road is going to be either Sinful Preservation or Nimble Steps, but I highly suggest Sinful Preservation. Since we don't have very many endurance conduits in our build already, this one is kind of a pseudo endurance, where whenever you use a health potion and a health stone, you do gain an absorption shield equal to 50% of that heal for up to 20 seconds. After that, finally our last finesse conduit, which is going to be, in my opinion, Tactical Retreat, but you can pick any of the other 2. And then the capstone ability for Nadjia the Mistblade is going to be Fatal Flaw. So after that Euphoria buff ends, after that 20% haste buff ends, you gain either 10 seconds of a 20% increased crit chance buff, or 20% versatility. So in PvE, you want to have more crit than versatility, so it would give you 20% crit. In PvP, you would want to have more versatility than crit, so you gain 20% versatility. So a Mythic Plus or an AoE Soulbind build would look something like this, and you would want to Soulbind with Theotar the Mad Duke. And his first ability is Soothing Shade, which the way it works is it gives you a 550 mastery buff for 12 seconds as long as you're standing under the parasol of Tubbins and Gubbins. Then we get to pick our first endurance conduit, which will be any of the 5 you see on the screen. I always prefer either Animosphere, Harmony of the Tortolan, or Resilience of the Hunter, but they all 5 are great in their own ways, and I'll let you guys pick which one works with your playstyle. That will unlock Watch the Shoes, which just makes your Door of Shadows free you from roots and snares. Great for PvP, and it also works kind of the same way as our Post Haste does as a Marksman Hunter. After that, we finally unlock our first potency conduit, which will be Empowered Release. And that is the one that increases the chances that you'll proc your Flayer's Mark and increases the damage of that kill shot. Then we get to our first fork in the road of this tree, which is either Life of the Party or Exquisite Ingredients. Ingredients is great just to make a little bit extra money. You get some herbs that way, but also the other one will increase the happiness gained from guests at your Ember Court, which is actually what I'm using right now on my hunter as I'm moving through the Ember Court to get the last couple of mounts that I need. And then we'll get to unlock another endurance conduit, so go ahead and pick whichever one you did not pick above. And then I prefer, if I'm running with 2, I prefer to run with Animosphere and Tortolan, but like I said, that's your choice. Up next is the first of 2 finesse conduits, so we only have 4, so the best 2 in my opinion are Reversal of Fortune and then Cheetah's Vigor, so those will be the 2 that I use in my tree with Theotar. After that, that will unlock Wasteland Propriety, so whenever you use your Flayed Shot, which you will use often, every 30 seconds, it gives you 6% versatility and 3% versatility to up to 4 nearby allies for 5 seconds. That's not a small amount of versatility. It can definitely be the difference between life and death in a PvP or like a high mythic scenario. And since this is an AoE build for a Mythic Plus run, Deathly Chain will be the other potency conduit that you want to pick. Just increases the damage of the bouncing trick shots that you use throughout the dungeon. And then after Deadly Chain, you have one more option. It's either it's always tea time or it's life is but an appetizer. And I think tea time is way better. So whenever Soothing Shade activates, it also heals you and you take a percentage of reduced damage while standing in that shaded area. And that will unlock the other finesse conduit that I alluded to earlier. I choose Cheetah's Vigor, but you can choose any of the other 3 that you didn't pick above. And then finally, his capstone ability is going to be called Party Favors. And the way Party Favors work is you actually go find him in Sinfall and you get the Mad Duke's tea from him. And the tea can either increase your haste, versatility, crit strike, or main stat. And that does last for 4 hours, but you can only have one of those effects at a time. And then now let's go ahead and talk about our single target and AoE talents for your Venthyr Marksman Hunter. And spoiler alert, they're pretty much the same for all of the 4 covenants, unfortunately. And honestly, hardly any of them have changed at all for the entire expansion. So for single target at level 15, you want to pick Master Marksman. At level 25, you want to pick Careful Aim. And at level 30, honestly, depending on what you're doing, all 3 will work. If you're doing something that's competitive, raiding, that sort of thing, I would pick Natural Mending. If you're just running around doing world quests, doing stuff in the Maw, or maybe even over in Torghast, Trailblazer is great to give you that movement speed. Or if you're doing PvP or wanting your Invis without having to use Invis Pot in Mythic Plus, Camouflage is the way to go, and that also gives you 2% of your max health back every 1 second. At level 35, Steady Focus is still the best for single target. However, if you are someone who struggles with keeping that 7% haste buff up for 85 or 90% of a fight, Streamline is also great. And if there is a 2-target cleave fight, Chimera Shot is the way to go. At level 40, you can either pick Post Haste or Born to be Wild. I prefer Born to be Wild, but if there is a route that you need to get out of, Post Haste is great. At level 45, Double Tap is still the best. Deadeye will see some play as a Venthyr only, but still Double Tap will be the best way to go with all situations. And then at level 50 for single target, the best is Lock and Load. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our AoE talents, and a lot of these are pretty much the same for both single target and AoE. So at level 15, Master Marksman. At level 25, you want to pick Explosive Shot, except if you're doing 25 plus Tyrannical keys, and if your group has great AoE damage, you might consider going Careful Aim, otherwise Explosive Shot will be the way to go. At level 30, you want to pick any of these 3. Mythic Plus has some play for camouflage or arenas and PvP. Otherwise, I would normally run with Natural Mending. At level 35, for AoE, Streamline becomes better. At level 40, you can pick between either Post Haste or Born to be Wild, the same way that you would for single target. At level 45, Double Tap is still the best. And then at level 50, you'll pick Volley. And then now that we've taken a look at our talents, let's go ahead and talk about our stat priority for your Venthyr Marksman Hunter. And just like the Night Fae and the Necrolord, you build them the same way. The only exception would have been Kyrian, because you don't want as much crit on them since you already get that from your Resonating Arrow. So because of that, our highest stat is still going to be our weapon DPS. So you want to make sure and use the highest item level weapon possible, regardless of its secondary stats. Follow that up with then Agility, then Crit, then Mastery, Versatility, and finally Haste. And I did add another bit there where it says any crit above 35%, because once you hit 30% crit, you do start to hit diminishing returns, so it just has a less of a value than, let's say, adding it to Mastery or Versatility. And then for Haste there, that is a percent that works for me and my playstyle. Technically, low Haste or almost no Haste is actually a higher damage output since you would have more Mastery or more Versatility. It's just harder to pull off. It's more taxing on you as a player, and if it's a heavy movement fight, it is grueling to do that, but you can. So that's really based on your play style. I would go more if you're having trouble in PvE, and then just make sure you're not putting too much haste in there. So for example, I wouldn't go more than 15%, since you, on a single target fight at least, would already be getting an additional 7% thanks to your steady focus buff. And then finally, if you're in PvP, Versatility is actually your best secondary stat, so you want to make sure to have more Versatility more than everything, just to increase the damage you do to targets and lowers the amount of damage that you take. So now let's go ahead and practice some damage on your Venthyr Marksman Hunter, and we'll start off with a single target opener for you guys. So first you'll use double tap with about 8 seconds left on your pull timer, and then you'll precast a steady shot with about 2 seconds left. And you might have to delay that just a little bit to make sure that you don't pull early if you have higher amounts of haste. And then you'll use another steady shot, that way you have steady focused 7% haste buff up for the entire duration of this opener. Then you'll use flayed shot, true shot with your macro that'll have, racials, on-use trinkets, or potions in it. Then aim shot, rapid fire, aim shot, arcane shot, rapid fire, aimed, and then aimed. But there is one change, and this is only for Venthyr. If your flayed shot does proc a free use of kill shot, use it, and then just pick up where you left off. So if you use true shot, aimed, rapid, aimed, and then you get that flayed shot proc, use that kill shot, then arcane, then rapid, aimed, aimed. And let's go ahead and take a look at an example of what this opener would look like. And in this video, my item level is 243 with a 252 weapon, non-legendary bow. And then of course, I have no items from 9.2 currently in this video. And now an AoE opener would look something like this for like Mythic Plus or just an AoE fight. And if you are doing AoE, make sure you are running with Theotar instead of Nadjia the Mistblade. So you want to use double tap, then explosive shot, followed up by flayed shot, true shot, and of course true shot is macro together with all those other things like in single target, then volley, aimed, rapid fire, aimed, aimed, multi-shot, and then finally one more aim shot. And then like single target, if you have the legendary that creates a AoE bleed whenever you use your flayed shot procs, be sure and use those in this opener. Now let's go ahead and talk about a single target rotation priority for your Venthyr Marksman Hunter. So at number 1, make sure you're using kill shot on cooldown. We're going to get a lot more kill shots than the average Marksman Hunter thanks to our flayed shot procking freebie kill shots. And with those flayed shot procs, make sure you're using them as soon as they proc every single time, no exceptions. Thanks to our legendary belt that we get here in 9.2, we do get a bleed that comes out of those kill shots that are procced by flayed shot as well. So they will cause your main target and up to 6 around it to bleed for 60% of that initial damage. At number 2, make sure you're keeping your steady focus 7% haste buff up at all times. I try to shoot for between 85 to 90% uptime on that, and Warcraft logs can actually track that to help you try to get better at that. If it is something that you are struggling with, Streamline also works just fine as a talent. At number 3, make sure you're using double tap on cooldown, and when the target's health is above 70%, use it on aim shot. When it's below 70%, you use it on rapid fire. At number 4, that flayed shot that we were talking about, our main Covenant ability, use that on cooldown, and make sure that the 18-second dot is up for the entire time. So try not to put it on a target that's about to die. At number 5, make sure you're using true shot on cooldown. 6, make sure you're using your aim shots and not allowing them to cap on charges, since they only have 2 charges that have to recharge every 10 seconds or so, and those are what empower your arcane shots later on with precise shots. Number 7, you use rapid fire on cooldown. Then, as I just alluded to at number 8, make sure you're using all of your precise shot procs, which are the 75% damage, empowered arcane or multi-shot procs, or even chimera shot if you're running with that. Make sure you're using those every time, don't waste any of them. And then at number 9, if all else fails, make sure if you need focus, use steady shot. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what an AoE rotation priority would look like for you on your Venthyr Marksman Hunter. So much like all of the Covenants, make sure that you're using Explosive Shot on cooldown. And then number 2, make sure you're using Double Tap on cooldown and using it on Rapid Fire over Aim Shot, unless you're doing those high Mythic Plus keys and you happen to take a Careful Aim over Explosive Shot. Then number 3, use Kill Shot on cooldown only when you are using the Venthyr Covenant Legendary. And when I say kill shot on cooldown, it kind of couples in with number 4. So the only kill shots that are actually going to cause the bleed thanks to the Venthyr Legendary is going to be the ones procced from Flayed Shot. So do keep that in mind. But those are still very strong because they do 25% more damage, and then they spread a bleed for 60% of the kill shot damage up to 7 targets can get hit by that. So just make sure you're using Flayed Shot on cooldown and that it can stay up the entire 18 seconds and then get all those kill shots out. Then number 5, make sure you're using the True Shot macro that you have with either racials, any of your potions, trinkets, that sort of thing. And then at 6 here, you use your volley on cooldown, and then like the other covenants as well, make sure that you're coupling them together with other abilities. For example, making sure that you have like explosive shot, double tap, and then you go into like a Flayed Shot, True Shot, volley, and then go aimed, rapid, aimed, and that'll be some insane amounts of damage, particularly if you have like a pack of 8+. Then after that, make sure you're just using your multi-shot to get your trick shots as needed. Thanks to our 2 and 4 set here in 9.2, though, we won't need to multi-shot nearly as much, which will be great for our overall damage. It'll be less focus that we have to waste just to get the buff. The buff will already come to us naturally. Then make sure you're using rapid fire on cooldown, and the same goes for aim shot there. And make sure that you don't allow your aim shot charges to cap. That is a huge DPS loss. Same goes for just being capped on focus. That's just focus you could have been dumping with a multi-shot or an arcane shot or even chimera shot in a 2-target situation. Finally, make sure that you, like I said, use your multi-shots to dump focus if needed. And then finally, if you need focus, make sure that you're using steady shot. And now we've come to my favorite part of the video, and most likely the main reason that you guys are here. This is going to be the biggest source of power and boost to our damage here in 9.2. So we're going to talk about all the changes that Marksman Hunter saw here in 9.2, as well as the legendaries that you want to run with week 1 for both single target and AoE, how that's going to change in week 5 once we start unlocking our legendary belts, and then finally how the 2 and 4 set is going to change the way we build our Marksman Hunter and what legendaries we pick. So this will be a good portion of the video. So, first off, 9.2 Marksman Hunter changes. Alright, I guess that's it. The only changes Marksman Hunter saw were a couple of anima powers in Torghast, so I'm pretty much saying we got 0 changes, which is just fine, because honestly, I would rather have no changes than nerfs, and I think you guys would probably agree. So let's check that box and move on to the next section. So, legendary for week 1. So, week 1, single target legendary, you want to run with a Serpent Stalker's Band of Trickery or the Shoulders on your Venthyr Marksman Hunter. It's really the go-to single target legendary for 3 of the 4 covenants, the outsider being the Night Fae. There's actually really good for single target. You could also use the Covenant legendary. It goes on either the pants or on, I believe, boots, which is the Leggards of Razor Wire, which basically adds a small bleed effect to your Flayed Shot, which still does a decent amount of damage, particularly since our kill shots often thanks to that Flayed Shot. And then for AoE, we want to use Surging Shots. So it's pretty much the go-to legendary for AoE. Again, I think 3 of the 4 covenants are actually using this exact build, you know, for single target, Serpent Stalker, AoE, Surging Shots. Unfortunately, Marksman hasn't really changed at all this entire expansion, outside of a very few like legendary changes that change a little bit of our playstyle. That can be seen as a good and bad thing, but they're doubling down on our playstyle, and our 2 and 4 set for tier pieces actually reflect that, and I think we can really start to up our damage here in 9.2. So that's for week 1. Week 5, we unlock the Clasp of Unity, which is the legendary belt that we get in the new zone. So to unlock this, I won't talk about it here. I will put a link in the description of the video. Basically, it'll be a write-up from Wowhead how to do it as quick as possible, since that is very important to make sure you get it like the first week it's available to you. So that it will give you the legendary effect of whatever covenant that you're currently playing. So for us here as a Venthyr Marksman Hunter, it is Pouch of Razor Fragments, which is the exact leggings that I was talking about. Basically, it just gives you an AoE bleed for, I believe it is, causes 6 targets around your current target to bleed. It works for single target, it works for AoE, and in fact this is actually going to be a pretty sizable buff for Venthyr. In fact, I didn't say it in my Necrolord video, but I'll say it here. I'm hoping you can look around me. It's pretty, like, I'll turn here. It's pretty empty here. I don't see really any other hunters at all. I hope that changes here in 9.2 since I am recording this bit on the PTR. But that legendary belt will allow us to have 2 legendaries, so it will give us the effect of the extra bleed on all of our kill shots. So for single target, you'll run with the Legendary Covenant from the belt, and then you'll run with Serpent Stalker's Trickery. Then for AoE, just like before, you will run with the Razor Wire Legs from the Clasp of Unity, and then you'll also run with Surging Shots. I know it's super uninspiring, but it's only going to help us, and it actually at least allows us to use our Covenant Legendary, which, you know what, I do appreciate. So alright, so let's move ahead to the big bread and butter portion, which is going to be our tier set. So I have a video out on the tier sets from the PTR. It hasn't changed since then, but if you guys haven't checked that out, let's talk about it real quick. So the 2 set reads as follows. Trick Shots now increases the damage of the affected shot by 30%. So whenever you are in an AoE situation, that rapid fire or that aim shot will do 30% more damage when you have trick shots available. That's great. Doesn't do a single thing for us for single target, does 30% more for AoE. Okay, great. Well, how does that help us? Well, it also synergizes with the 4 set, and the 4 set reads as follows. Spending 40 focus grants you 1 charge of trick shots, and that opens the door to so many possibilities and so much more fun for a marksman hunter, and I'll tell you why. So if you read that again, spending 40 focus grants you 1 charge of trick shots. 1 aim shot is 35 focus. So you could pretty much do 1 aim shot and 1 arcane shot, which would be empowered after you would have casted it, and that's already enough to give you a trick shots. So it allows you to get trick shots outside of hitting 3 targets with a multi-shot, and it also doesn't require you to be using volley, which means we finally can do 2 target cleave. We can get that trick shots outside of doing anything with, you know, less than 3 targets. So that's only going to help us. The only way we could do it other than that was either using volley or using Chimera shot, but even then it's kind of lackluster in comparison to this. And then you might be asking, why is this going to help us for single target? Well, if it is still a pure single target fight, if you were to be hitting 3 targets, it gives you the buff of trick shot. So you would see it on my weak auras as well. So even if you're attacking 1 target, that buff is still used up, even if it doesn't bounce. So it's still going to do 30% increased damage on your abilities whenever you're attacking single target. This does not change your playstyle at all, single target, which is great. That just means more damage in your kit without having to do anything. But it also helps you and frees you up in AoE situations as well, where you're going to be getting free trick shots where you don't have to use multi-shot. You can save that focus and pump it into more abilities like your explosive shot or even another aim shot. But this opens the door to the new legendary that I'm talking about, and this is most likely going to be used for both single target and AoE, which is going to be the Unblinking Vigil. So the way this legendary works, it reads as follows. When you gain trick shots, which you will get from your 4 set, you have 50% chance, which I think is pretty generous, to refund a charge of aim shot and cause your next aim shot to not consume focus, making it literally free. We only get 2 charges of aim shot, so it's a really strong ability. It's actually our strongest ability, does the most damage on the meters. So we're going to be getting those free in our kit. Great for AoE, great for single target. There is literally no drawback, which I love. So you are going to be able to do mad damage with this, getting free aim shots. This would couple perfectly with, let's say for example, you attack with an aim shot. It gives you that trick shots proc and this procs. So then you get another free aim shot that doesn't cost anything, you just have to cast it. You use that, if you have your Razor Wire legendary going as once, they're also bleeding. You can hit them with your kill shots, and all of this isn't costing you any focus, and it can just continually snowball. You could become a monster in PvP, a monster in PvE, and no one will know what hit them. That is the main reason I am really looking forward to Marksman Hunter. I hope we see more Necrolords. I hope we see more Venthyr to get away from all of the Night Fae and all of the Kyrian, but we'll just have to wait and see how you guys enjoy this. And then real quick, let's go ahead and talk about how I would build my Venthyr Marksman Hunter for PvP, whether that be for Battlegrounds or for Arena. So first, my Soulbind, I would pick Nadjia, and I would do my single target build. Then talent-wise, at level 15, I would pick Master Marksman. Level 25, Careful Aim. Level 30 would be Natural Mending. Level 35 would be Streamline. 40 would be Born to be Wild or Post Haste. Level 45 would be Double Tap, and then level 50 would be Lock and Load. And then for PvP talents, I'm really in love with True Shot Mastery and Scatter Shot. And then the other option I prefer for BGs would be Sniper Shot. Another really good option though is Consecutive Concussion. It will cause Concussive Shot to slow the target for 70%, and you can continually keep that going with Steady Shot. And then if you hit them with Steady Shot 3 times in a row, it will stun them for 4 seconds, which finally puts a stun in our kit as a Marksman Hunter, because we don't actually have one. And then finally, as for my Legendary, so obviously you'll have your Legendary Belt here in 9.2 that will give you your Venthyr Bleed on all of your kill shots, but the other Legendary I would use would actually be my Surging Shots Legendary. Another option, if you were running with a 4 set, would be your Secrets of the Unblinking Vigil. And the best part about Venthyr and why they're so good at PvP is it's all single target oriented damage. So what you would want to do would be to, for example, if you have the jump on someone, start off with a careful aimed, double tapped aim shot. Don't use Sniper Shot first. So you would go double tap into an aim shot on a target, that way they're above 70% health, so that's taking 50% additional damage on both hits of the aim shot. Then you can follow that up with a rapid fire, then use your True Shot, then either stun them or get them in a trap or use Scatter Shot on them, and then hit them with a Sniper Shot. They will not know what hit them, and I completely delete people whenever I'm in BGs with that. These last couple of sections are pretty easy. This one is going to be about your macros and weak auras that I use. So these, I use very few macros if I'm being honest, but they are found on the screen right now. The one that I would change is obviously the Misdirection macro. I will just put where it says tank name here. Make sure you put the name of your tank in your particular raid. That way you can just help them out with a pull. And then if you want to know all of the weak auras I use, if you send me a message personally on my Discord channel, you just friend me on there or join my Discord, a link in the description below. I can personally send you the weak aura strings that I use. They are rather long. I haven't figured out how to compress them yet, but I can send you those personally if you ask for those. And the last section of this video is going to be about consumables and enchants that I use on my Marksman Hunter. For the ring enchants, those can kind of change based on what you're trying to get to, like percentage wise. If you need a little bit more crit, I would put crit on the ring. Same way goes for gems. If you want to add more versatility, or if you're doing PvP, put versatility on your rings and gems. And then also, if you want to drop some crit and you want to put mastery in there, you can do that as well. So those will fluctuate for me. And then for your chest piece, plus 30 to stats is still the best. And for your boots, 15 agility is always good. And then finally, on your weapon, I use the Celestial Enchant. Gives you 5% of your main stat, which is agility, which is always good. You could always use one of the scopes from Shadowlands as well. And then finally, as for the consumables themselves, I still use agility potions. They're still my favorite, and they're pretty easy for me to make. As a Venthyr most of the time on some of my other classes, I spend a large amount of time in Revendreth. And then the Shadow Core oil is still the best oil to use. Food, I fluctuate between having the food buff from raid, or mastery food, or versatility food if you need a little bit more survivability. So if you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. This has been a huge undertaking for me, doing 4 Marksman Hunter guides in 9 days. I did not think it would have that short of a turnaround, but unfortunately it did. I would hope you guys would consider subscribing to me here on YouTube and follow me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/Mr. Eggplant. I have streams going all week long. I will be streaming my guild's raid now that 9.2 is finally upon us. And if you guys didn't like this guide, be sure and check out any of the other Covenant guides. They will be found in a playlist here on YouTube, whether that be Kyrian, looking for Necrolord, Venthyr, or even Night Fae. I've got you covered. They are all there. So thank you guys so much. Be sure and leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Things that I can maybe change. I can always do that. And if not, I appreciate you spending your time with me, and I look forward to hearing all of you guys' great comments for Mythic Plus. Best of luck in Raid, Mythic Plus if you're going for Keystone Master or above, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys live in a stream very soon. So thank you guys for watching.